segment. Can you tame a gladiator without changing the game? Modern society's impact on the NFL. In general, people don't possess an immense moral high ground. And I mean that while using their actions as the measuring stick. Of course, if we were to use their online personas or their words to measure their levels in which the morals reside, it's clearly a completely different outcome than if we were to use what actually exists there. On Twitter and Facebook, though, lives are perfect. And so are the people that are painting that mirage for us. It's a platform where every account judges from an alpine bench, and every person on it swings this copious hammer that cannot be touched by anybody else. Whether or not these people impose that same rigorous judgment on themselves is irrelevant. You can't see them or touch them. You can't hear them or silence them. You can't control them. And the mob of people that could once be physically forced off of the street has multiplied by millions and are now invisible behind the screens of cell phones and laptops and tablets. Whether or not they abide by what they say they do is irrelevant, because if they demand that a man who made a mistake is jettisoned from the NFL, then you better adhere to that, or else. Sponsors start feeling the wrath, and soon everything changes. And for many reasons, this is really an amazing achievement for humanity, but for other reasons, it can be a disaster. As the voice of people becomes stronger in each passing day, it will force the NFL into the foxhole of its fabricated, impeccable ideals. And ultimately, the voice of the people will win, and the NFL will become exactly what they have requested it to be. It's at that point when the people will then throw it away. You see, they want certain kind of people in the NFL, and they want certain kind of play in the NFL. Once they get all of these things, they will no longer want the NFL, because it will no longer be the NFL. I'm not here to defend drug use or cheating. I'm not here to defend bullying. I'm not here to defend Ray Rice or any other man who has ever struck a woman. But this is the game of the gladiator, where the fans show up to the modern-day arena to watch violence and bloodshed, where limbs are snapped in half, muscles tear like wrapping paper, and grown men sometimes leave the field without the ability to ever walk again. This is all okay by you. You see it every weekend. You see the replays. You see the vines and forward them to your friends. You love it all until it crosses over to real life. Once it does that, you don't want anything to do with it. Understanding that the game cannot last if they do not make it more sustainable for the athlete, the NFL has already started changing the rules to preserve the health of the players and make it more palatable for society, and specifically for women. Unfortunately for the NFL, this does not change the mentality of many of the athletes who play the game of football. You see, the American football fan loves his make-believe fantasy world where men battle on the gridiron and draft players in a war room. But these terms are real for an NFL player who is called soft if he is not violently and physically dominating his opponent in front of the eyes of millions. You may not approve of bullying at your office, and Susie from HR might even threaten your job if you engage in it. But a guy who bangs his head into another man's hundreds of times per week may not think twice to engage in it if he thinks he can't rely on you on the battlefield. The word soft is the worst thing you could ever say to an NFL player who has transformed his mind to never back down from anything, no matter his size or his stature. In the most literal of all meanings, these are the toughest and meanest men on the planet. I would assure you that if there is one kind of man that you may not want to slap or spit on in an elevator as a woman, it's the NFL kind. He may just knock you out. Does that make it okay for Ray Rice to hit his wife? Of course not. But does it make it more likely that Ray Rice would instinctively respond violently? Absolutely it does. Remember, these are our gladiators. They are fully grown men that are being coached to respond and destroy without thought. Cardinals linebacker John Abraham has been suffering memory loss for the past year. He still showed up to camp this season and was hoping to slam his head into other men's heads for as long as it took to get to a Super Bowl. He's been suffering memory loss. His decision to come back was okay with the organization, and it was okay with you. He ended up with a concussion last week, and now he's contemplating retirement. His head coach, Bruce Arians, told the media that he has been talking with Abraham to see if his heart is still in it. This guy is losing his memory, and he got another concussion, and his coach said, I talked to him to see if his heart was still in it. Not to see if he should make the right decision for him and his family. No, he talked to him to see if his heart was still in it. And guess what yesterday? John Abraham made the decision that he's returning. He's coming back. The guy was suffering memory loss. He just got another concussion, and now he's coming back again. Arians must have really got through to him. This is a warped world in the NFL, where after a decade of survival, popping Molly at the horse track may sound like a pretty damn good getaway. And smoking marijuana may be the only thing that can settle your mind. Did we need to remove guys like Richie Incognito and Ray Rice? Sure, they were obvious moves. Sure, they were moves that needed to be made. But it's the trickle-down effect that will ruin the league. As the league becomes more of what society's voice demands it to be, the edge will disappear, and so will the very fabric that made it what it is today. I'm not saying that this is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying that it's something. My grandchildren will be fascinated to learn about those terrifying gladiators that I grew up watching way back in the day.